Amber, Underground, Chapter 5 of the story of the Giantslayer Endeavor. Our reckless attempt to play an entire adventure path in 6 sessions across 6 months. And Marathon 5 will be remembered on a personal level like this. That is the Amber Die. And the Amber Die was as hot in this marathon as July in New Jersey. And hot is exactly how I remember this one. This marathon was all about heat. We were going into the fire giant's domain. We had lava lamps ready to roll. It was so hot out of game that we could barely take breaks on the patio. We played this one at Fort Rannoch. We were back here at OAD HQ, ready to rock. Final third of the adventure path. It was going to be another 4-day marathon. We had a couple of newcomers for this one. It was actually a really good time. We had, total we had 7. So yeah, 7 people in this one. So we had Eric back from Marathon 2 and 3. We also had Louisa fly in. She did a fantastic job as a live NPC for Thune the Doppelganger. That was a great time. She flew in from Ohio. And that's a tough one to play, actually, a doppelganger. I was like, how's this going to go? And did a really great job with it. It's so cool to have an association like this where we have people fly in like, yo, I'm going to just play. They really want to play a live NPC. They want to be part of the story. And to make it come to life, the best way is to take that NPC out of the GM's hands, make it your character, play it like yours for the sake of the story. It's a very selfless act. It's what most groups won't do. Every player wants to play their character, their story, their build. You know, it's all about the spotlight on them, and I get that. I do. But what makes OAD different is that the spotlight is on the overall experience. It's all about enhancing the group play, the group experience, the marathon experience, the project experience. And in many ways, I think that having people come in and play live NPCs, it's really something that every group, I think, should try. In many ways, every group could benefit from this. Sean, this was actually Sean's first marathon. We met him in April of that year, and Sean ended up becoming the Castellan of the order because he lived local. He's able to be here for a lot of marathons to come. And if you know Sean now, he's been in lots of projects and helps us do our setups and everything you see with our studio and lighting and all that kind of stuff that takes place as far as getting the whole look of our gaming studio here. That's all Sean. And he manages the food and takes care of Fort Rannoch. He does a great job building all kinds of stuff and, you know, keeping the house in good shape. And it's really, without Sean, it's funny because I don't know that we could have pulled off some of our future projects where we went for pretty crazy setups, and we had no idea at the time. Actually, Sean played his first role as Jagrin Grath at that marathon, so we had really we had Eric playing Ingrahild, we had Louisa rocking it on Thune, we had Sean playing Jagrin Grath. We had just had a great. It was really cool. We had a great crew of just players, and I don't remember any real hang-ups in this adventure other than what we talked about in Marathon 4, which was, the whole experience with one of our guys going through a divorce. And obviously that was going to go on the rest of the project. These things were only 4 weeks apart. So this is not something that's like, hey, it just happened and then it's over in Marathon 4 and we're all good for Marathon 5 and 6. No, he was in the heat of it. And so that definitely affected quite a bit of his play and everything going forward. So we would continue to be there for him as we went forward, and we'd hold this together as a group. And having this one be so many people, it was very exciting. There was a lot of energy. I remember some really cool stuff we did with dungeon tiles. There were lots of caverns as you went through this volcano, and we kept pulling out. We had 3 bins of D&D dungeon tiles from back in the day that we would lay out and just real quick throw every chamber together as we went through them. That was really awesome. I recommend having something like that that's modular, that you can just adjust for every room in this adventure path volume if you do play it, and have something prepared to just be very flexible. There were so many chambers. A big dragon battle too, a really big dragon battle. Where we had all kinds of, it was like 2 huge dragons. I mean, all these red dragons, I remember, and then a bunch of large ones, something like that. It was just really, really awesome. It took it over the top. It was, high level Pathfinder. This is what it is now. You're at the end of the adventure path. Stuff's getting crazy. The battles get bigger. The crits get bigger. And yes, we played well. And the Ember die was hot. The Ember die was fantastic in this marathon. 16 natural 20s, a triple 20. And it was the second triple 20 in the path. That's the thing. This thing was hot. Second triple 20, and it'll do that. That's kind of when it'll speak. And I don't roll it every time. That's why it's so wild. No, I was probably leaning on it a little more than normal. 16 20s is a lot. Even here, sitting here now, years later, going, man, was there ever a time? I know there's some other marathons in there that we put on the blog with some reports about crazy stuff that went down, but this one might have taken it. 16 20s and a triple 20. I don't know. There's been some wild ones, but it was doing its thing. It was doing exactly what I wondered. Could the Amber die perform the way it has for all of us for so many years when we were not in front of the community? Would it continue to do the thing that caused us to name ourselves after it, to pledge ourselves to a single die? Could it do it? Could the magic be generated in front of the community, or was it something that was reserved solely for us? And we got our answer. We already had it, I think, by Marathon 4, but this one just reminded us of what makes the Amber die special. It's not necessarily the greatest die as far as high rolls or even the number of 20s. It's the chaining. Yeah, it rolled a lot of 20s in this marathon. That was hot. But there were plenty of marathons that it rolled lots of 1s. It's the chaining. The triple 20s, the double 20s, stuff like that. That's what makes it really special. It speaks. It chooses moments to speak. We had a really cool scenario at the end of this one, too, that I will always remember. I can always think of. As soon as I think of this one, Anvil of Fire, I'm like, oh, yes, 1v1 against the Fire Giant King. The author, Sean K. Reynolds, he offered an option that was kind of hard to pull off. You had to get into like a parlay with the Fire Giant Queen, and one thing would lead to another, and perhaps you could get a 1v1 duel versus the Fire Giant King. And the way I made it seem was that each person had to abide by that in the room, that it was 1v1, one player versus the Fire Giant King. I wasn't 100% sure if it should be that when I read it, but I was thinking it was like party versus the Fire Giant King or something. And then I was like, maybe not. Maybe it's like 1v1 the player. It wasn't entirely clear. So I kind of tricked the party into thinking that you couldn't interfere with Crow as he took on the Fire Giant King. Because if you did, you weren't sure if maybe that was going to cause you to lose the whole scenario or something. And that would bring in just, dozens of other giants and all these other like emissaries and things like that were in the final chamber. And so I managed to get them to let Crow go 1v1 versus the Fire Giant King. He did it. He actually did it. That was the crazy thing. I remember him being down to near death. We play essentially, you're either full health, you're wounded, or you're near death. And when you're damaged, you're simply wounded. That's it. I won't tell you anything more than that. So someone will say like, how's the Fire Giant King look? He's wounded. He's only near death when he's within the range you can do in a single hit. Not a crit either. So let's say your max damage is 40. If he's 40 or less, I'll say he's near death. And it's a little bit of a judgment call here and there, depending on, like a wizard, say, who has access to like disintegrate or something like that. But in the case of Crow fighting the Fire Giant King, the Fire Giant King will be near death when he's at about 40 or less. If Crow can do 40, he's wounded the rest of the time and you won't know anything else, or he's at full health. And the same goes for PCs. So Crow was near death. I remember him being within a single hit. I just had to hit him one more time. That's it. And to Sterling's credit, he pulled it off. He pulled it off, and it was epic. I remember we staged the entire thing. It was a fight that we knew was going to happen. So we stopped the marathon, got the whole room set up and prepared for this massive, everyone's going to see something you've never seen before, right? This massive experience. Like, how often in your lifetime as a gamer, as a tabletop role player, as a Pathfinder player, are you going to face off or even witness a 1v1 face off against a fire giant king? How many times? One. And we all knew it. So we actually stopped the marathon, made sure we set the whole thing up. The sun was going down. We were getting this long summer sunset thing happen in the living room. And it was one of those things like I talk about. There's experiences in an adventure path, experiences in a marathon that you'll never forget. As the sun went down, all we were left with were the lava lamps around us. We had bought these giant 27-inch lava lamps. Just really cool experience. Great ambiance. Marathon 5, I think, helped us prepare for what we knew was coming. We needed something like we had to have a big group experience. We wanted something that felt good. We got it. At this point, we were definitely under-leveled. We just were going by exactly what experience the path offered. We were definitely under. I mean, on money, we were so far under. And a critical decision that would affect the outcome of the campaign was made. I will tell you that players still feel a little salty about this one. I don't think there's a single player in the order that has, in their mind, forgiven whoever made the decision over at Paizo for this one. And it was that Adventure Path 5, the volume for number 5 and number 6, come 10 minutes apart or less. You finish 5, you run sort of like down a hallway out, and you exit out of the volcano into the crater, and that's 6. And there was no hint. They feel this. I'm not letting my players off the hook. No, because they could have used teleport or something like that. But they felt as if they were rushed and that there was a time element put in. And so they weren't allowed to simply just teleport away and go buy a whole bunch of items and spend the 165,000 gold they were carrying around. They felt pushed into part 6. And that for story purposes, they didn't want to slow down. They wanted to rush through, and whatever happens, thinking that maybe like part 6 would have several parts that they'd be able to, at some point in there, teleport out and go spend their money. Instead, what happened was they rushed to the edge of the crater. Part 6 began, not even 10, it really was like 2 minutes or something. It felt like in game time after part 5. They were that close together. I'm trying to think of any adventure path, and I'm sure there are some out there, but I am having trouble right now thinking of any that have 2 parts that are so closely tied together time-wise that you don't get a chance to really even catch a breath. Now, I think they should have been prepared for that. Look, this is the greatest game in the world. Be ready. You're good. Be ready. But I do hear some of their complaints. I do. I think that part of me wonders if that was the intention all along, to do that, to not allow them to go spend all the money they had collected from this adventure, because they didn't. And they went into part 6 without spending 165,000 gold. They will always say that it affected the outcome. I don't know that it would have changed the outcome, but that's a fair statement. That's a fair statement. That affected the outcome in part 6. Yeah, sure. Fair statement. Wow. even thinking about it now. I mean, it is the part that if you talk to the Order, you bring up what happened in Giantslayer and how the ending is going to play out in the next chapter. This is what they're going to focus on every time. Every time. They're going to say, wasn't clear enough. Every other volume lets you teleport out or go somewhere or spend your money or come back or have some time or access your resources in some way. And this one didn't. It pushed us from 5 to 6. And how is that supposed to be fair? And so forth and so on. And I'm not always ready to hear that, but maybe you agree. Either way, they're going to part 6. They're going to a cloud castle. They're going to face the Storm Tyrant. And they're going to do it down 165K.